When I woke up in Memorial West after collapsing at work, the room was silent. Too silent. No family, no messages, just the steady beep of a machine fighting harder for me than anyone I shared blood with. 3 days later, the nurse brought my phone. The first thing on the screen wasn't a missed call. It was a tag from my sister, my entire family, smiling at a picnic under the caption, Family Sunday. No drama today. I didn't know then that the photo was only the surface. That behind those smiles were forged signatures, stolen money, a guardianship plot, and a recording that would blow everything open. But what they didn't know was, I had finally stopped being their silence. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever trusted the wrong people, especially the ones who share your last name. This isn't just a story about me collapsing in an office. It's about what happens when the family you've been carrying your whole life finally lets go and expects you to crawl back anyway. I grew up in a house where love was measured in what you could provide, not who you were. The Carter home always smelled like lemon cleaner and leftover casseroles, the kind Lydia reheated until they lost their flavor. But somehow, Sienna always had new clothes, and Maddox always had a new hobby. I was 8 when I learned the rules weren't the same for all of us. One evening, the sun had barely dipped behind the pines when Lydia told Sienna to eat more, sweetheart, while sliding an extra scoop of mac and cheese onto her plate. Mine stayed half empty. I remember telling them I got the highest score on a spelling test. Lydia nodded, but her attention was already on Maddox, who'd spilled juice on the carpet. Dad launched into a lecture about responsibility even though I hadn't said a word. That night, I swallowed the sting and told myself I was being dramatic. But it lodged somewhere deep. By middle school, the ache had sharpened. I won the district science fair, a cold, rainy November day. Gym lights flickering above me, but Dad and Lydia showed up late, damp coats dripping on the floor. They didn't take a picture. Lydia just asked if we could hurry so Sienna wouldn't miss dance rehearsal. I sat in the back seat holding my cheap plastic trophy, listening to Sienna complain about her costume. I didn't know it then, but that was the first time I realized achievement meant nothing unless it came from the right child. In high school, while other kids went to parties, I stocked shelves at a grocery store that smelled like detergent and old fruit. My first paycheck felt like gold. I handed it to Ethan, hoping for praise. Instead, he said, family is a long-term investment. You help now, we help later. Later never happened. A week later, I overheard Sienna bragging about her beach trip paid for with my money. I told myself she needed the break. I told myself a lot of things I shouldn't have. College should have been my escape. But it became another extension of home. I studied architecture by day and worked at the library by night, the hum of printers drowning out how exhausted I really was. Lydia texted constantly about unexpected bills. Ethan needed help with temporary expenses. Maddox needed textbooks, which somehow always turned into gear for his latest short film. I wired money so often it felt like a reflex. The worst moment came sophomore year. I walked into the dorm lounge and heard laughter from a group crowded around someone's phone. On the screen was Sienna telling a funny story about her sister having a panic attack over a group project. She didn't say my name, but the details were unmistakable. My breath caught. The room echoed with laughter while the TV buzzed in the background. I forced a smile, pretended it didn't feel like being peeled open in front of strangers. Something in me dimmed that day. A small light I didn't notice myself losing. 2 weeks later, I visited Grandpa Ray in Spokane. His house smelled like black coffee and old paper, and the ticking clock above the fireplace seemed to slow my heartbeat. He poured coffee in a chipped mug and watched me with that quiet, razor-sharp stare of his. You think you're helping them, he said. They think you owe them. Different math. I denied it, defended them, said they were stressed. He didn't argue, just slid a spreadsheet across the table, listing every bill I'd covered. I didn't know it then, but that spreadsheet would become my first lifeline out of the Carter family system. When NovaBuild hired me after graduation, I thought I was stepping into a future that finally belonged to me. The office felt alive, printers humming, keyboards clicking, the steady rhythm of people building something real. For the first time, someone praised me without comparing me to a sibling. You're sharp, my supervisor said. Precise. I didn't tell him precision was what you developed when your mistakes were the only ones that ever counted. The paychecks were better, but my bank account never reflected it. Bills from home arrived like clockwork. Accidentally missed utilities. Lydia's overdue car insurance. Sienna's late rent after another failed brand launch. Maddox's textbook emergency that somehow always involved electronics. Every message came wrapped in the same tone. You understand. You're the strong one. I didn't question it. Not yet. Holidays were the worst. That Thanksgiving, I arrived with a homemade pie I'd spent hours perfecting. Lydia barely glanced at it. She slid Sienna's store-bought cheesecake into the center of the table like it was a crown jewel. Isn't it beautiful, she said. She's so creative. Sienna soaked in the attention, adjusting berries for a photo. Maddox scrolled on his phone. Ethan talked about how proud he was of Sienna's eco brand, a brand I'd quietly funded more times than I cared to admit. When I mentioned a promotion at NovaBuild, Ethan nodded without looking at me. The pie stayed untouched. Later that night, as I washed dishes under a dim bulb, Lydia's whisper drifted from the hallway. Aubrey always overreacts. She's strong, she can handle things. Soft voice. Sharp words. I stood still, hands submerged in suds, listening to Ethan reply, Sienna needs us more. Something inside me tightened, but I swallowed it like always. Months passed. NovaBuild promoted me to project lead. The workload doubled. Some nights I stayed so late the cleaning staff would nod at me like I was part of their shift. Rain streaked the windows and city lights bled across the glass in long, tired lines. My chest would clench without warning, a quick, bright pain that faded if I ignored it. So I ignored it. Over and over. Then came a night I still remember too clearly. I had stayed late finalizing a structural model, the office silent, except for the soft buzz of overhead lights. When my phone lit up, 4 messages arrived one after another. Ethan, mortgage due tomorrow. Handle it. Lydia, doctor bill came in. Just this month, honey. Sienna, brand payment late. Need a boost. Maddox, tuition messed up again. Can you resend 4 people? 4 demands. Not one question about me. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. My heart thudded unevenly. Still I typed the same reply to each, I'll take care of it. It was habit. A reflex. A role carved into me long before I understood I could walk away. On the bus home, rain smeared the city lights into gold and red streaks. I leaned my head against the cold window pulse, tapping at my neck like a warning. Something was wrong, not emotional, physical. My body was sending signals I wasn't ready to hear. Looking back, that was the night everything inside me reached its limit. I didn't collapse yet, but the fall had already begun. The weeks leading to my collapse felt like walking with a weight strapped to my ribs, heavy, constant tightening, a little more every day. At NovaBuild, the pressure grew with every deadline. Rain hammered the tall glass windows each afternoon, the city outside blurred and gray, as if even the sky was exhausted. I pushed through it. That was the version of me they all depended on. The first cracks appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing a support beam calculation when Becca hovered beside my desk. She wasn't smiling. You look off, she said quietly. Not tired, more like you're about to pass out. I joked it away, but she didn't move. There's something I should tell you, she whispered. At a team event weeks earlier, she'd overheard Lydia on speakerphone. I'd stepped away and Lydia didn't know Becca was nearby. Aubrey always makes things big, Lydia had said. She'll be fine. She has to be. She's the strong one. Becca said. Lydia laughed afterward, light dismissive. The words didn't surprise me. What hurt was how easily they fit. I thanked her, but all morning my chest felt like someone was pressing down on it with both hands. A week later came something I couldn't joke away. Twist 2. Sterling Wells Bank asked me to come in regarding an application. I assumed it was a mistake. The air inside the bank smelled like old carpet and cold metal. The banker slid a folder toward me. My name. My social. A loan application for a green startup called Carter Ecoco. The signature at the bottom was almost identical to mine, almost. Sienna. Only she could mimic my handwriting that well. The banker explained the application stalled because of missing documents. My ears rang. When I called Lydia, her tone was soft, sweet, infuriating. Sienna just needed help to get started. Don't make this a big thing. A forged federal loan wasn't a big thing to her. I hung up without replying. My hands were shaking. Then, as if the universe wanted to make sure I understood the direction my life was heading. Twist 3 hit me the following Friday. I was buying groceries after work when my card got declined. The cashier, a kid who looked about 17, said, "It's not going through," with the bored tone of someone who didn't care if I lived or died. Heat crawled up my neck. I paid with cash and walked home, cold air slicing at my face. I checked my statements as soon as I got inside. Rows and rows of charges, studio lights, microphones, editing, software, photography, backdrops. Maddox. When I confronted him, he sounded offended. "We're family, Aubrey. Why are you acting weird? I'll pay you back." He wouldn't. We both knew that. Something inside me twisted, familiar but sharper this time. But nothing prepared me for the night everything became unmistakably wrong. Lydia called. Her voice sounded soft. Too soft, like a pillow that smothers instead of comforts. "Dinner tomorrow," she said. "We need to talk as a family." When I arrived, the house carried that suffocating mix of pot roast and unspoken resentment. Sienna had a ring light set up. Ethan sat like a judge. Maddox scrolled his phone. At first they pretended it was concern. "You work too much," Ethan said. "You're not balanced." Sienna added camera, angled to catch her good side. "We're worried," Lydia whispered, dabbing non-existent tears. But their eyes gave them away. They weren't worried. They were preparing something, crafting a story. After dinner, Sienna pulled me aside. Her voice was sugar. Her words were blades. "If you keep melting down, brands might hesitate to work with us. Just don't embarrass the family." Her smile was flawless, manufactured. Walking to my car, the cold hit me so hard my breath fogged instantly. My reflection in the window didn't look tired. It looked like someone fading out of her own life. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know how bad it would get. 2 weeks after that dinner, the pressure around my life shifted from heavy to dangerous. At Nova Build, the days stretched into long gray blurs. I kept feeling a tight pull under my ribs like a fist closing slowly inside my chest. Still I kept working. Still I kept paying. Still I kept pretending the ground wasn't cracking under my feet. Then December came, cold, sharp, unforgiving. One night, after a 14-hour shift, I sat alone in the office reviewing a load model. Every desk around me was dark. The only light was the pale glow from my monitor and the flickering exit sign behind me. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. 4 messages in under a minute. Ethan, mortgage due tomorrow. Handle it. Lydia, small medical bill. Help us, sweetheart. Sienna. My brand deposit's late. Spot me, Maddox school messed up my tuition again. Can you resend 4 demands, 4 debts? No love, no concern. Just expectation. My vision blurred for a second. I forced myself to breathe through it, typed, I'll take care of it to each, and hit send. My fingers trembled afterward. I didn't know it, but my heart was working overtime just to keep me standing. A few days later came the envelope that changed everything, twist 4. It was waiting in my building's mailroom, beige and harmless looking. Inside was a petition from a law firm I'd never heard of. Temporary guardianship. Allegations of instability. Claims I couldn't manage stress or money. Statements signed by Ethan, Lydia, Sienna. I read it 3 times. My knees almost gave out. They weren't just using me anymore. They were erasing me. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the heater ticking like a metronome for panic. Fear sat heavy on my chest, then slowly transformed into something cold and sharp. They wanted control. They wanted access. And they wanted my silence. But for the first time, I didn't respond. A few days later, fear became physical. I stepped outside one icy morning to grab coffee, only to freeze mid-step. Ethan's truck was idling across the street. He sat behind the wheel, staring up at my building with a blank, predatory calm. When his eyes finally met mine, he didn't wave, didn't get out. He just watched, like he was checking if his plan was working. My breath turned shallow. I backed up, re-entered the building, let the door slam shut between us. Hours later, the entire building knew something was wrong. A neighbor uploaded a video to the group chat, Maddox in the lobby, shouting at security, demanding they let him upstairs. Security was patient. Maddox was not. The caption read, "Some guy losing it in our lobby over his sister." Yikes. I stared at the video until my phone dimmed. They weren't just crossing boundaries, they were obliterating them. 2 days later, Twist 5 arrived, unexpected, public, humiliating, and vindicating at the same time. I stopped at a late-night cafe called Green Cup, the windows fogged from steam. At the table next to me, 2 women whispered intensely while scrolling through their phones. "That's the influencer girl," one said. "And her sister? Apparently stole money." I froze. The second woman lowered her voice. "Someone leaked an audio clip. The dad said Aubrey owes me her whole damn life." It's everywhere. My blood went cold. Someone had recorded him. Someone had exposed the truth I'd lived with for years. I didn't know whether to feel violated or relieved. When I got home, my phone exploded with messages, demands, guilt trips, accusations, panic. I didn't answer a single one. I locked my door, turned off every light, and in the quiet, something inside me finally snapped into place, clean, final. The daughter who always bent was gone. In her place was someone they had never met, someone who would no longer bow. The morning everything broke was strangely calm. No alarms, no chaos. Just a quiet so heavy it felt staged. Snow drifted past the hospital window in slow white sheets, soft enough to hide the fact that my heart had nearly stopped 4 days earlier. Machines hummed beside me, steady, loyal, nothing like the people who'd ignored every warning sign my body had sent. A nurse wheeled in a cart holding my charged phone. "You've got a lot of notifications," she said gently, as if she already knew none of them were from anyone who cared. When she left, I unlocked the screen. 74 missed calls, dozens of messages, voicemails, all from the same people who hadn't shown up when I collapsed at work. Ethan's message sat at the top. "We need you. Call now." Not, "How are you?" Not, "Are you alive?" Just a command. My pulse didn't even spike, but the next notification did. Sienna had posted a video. I pressed play. She stood in our childhood living room, ring light glowing behind her, boxes stacked along the walls, as if the house were shedding its skin. Her mascara was smeared in a way that didn't look accidental. Her voice trembled perfectly, the way it always did when she wanted something. "I didn't want to make this public," she began, "but my sister Aubrey has been struggling. She's pushed us away. She's unstable. We're just trying to help her." She held up a cropped photo of me, smiling, from a Christmas years ago, turning it into proof of something I wasn't. "She needs intervention," Sienna whispered, "before it's too late." The comments flooded in sympathy, outraged strangers dissecting my mental state while I lay in a hospital gown. Then the video cut to a shot of the empty house. They took everything from us, Sienna said. And guess who let them A-beat? Then Maddox appeared crying into the camera about being shut out. Then Lydia wringing her hands whispering we just want her to accept help. Not one word about abandoning me here. Not one mention of forged loans, stolen credit cards, or a guardianship petition. They weren't just rewriting the story. They were erasing me from it. The machine beside me beeped faster, but I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just watched the life they created for me, a cautionary tale, a troubled sister, a burden spread across the internet like wildfire. And they were confident. Too confident. They didn't know someone else was already fighting for me. The door opened. Grandpa Ray stepped inside, snow on his coat, expression carved from granite. He carried a thick folder, the kind that didn't hold apologies, only truths. It's time, he said, placing it in my hands. Inside, bank statements, forged signatures, loan applications, identity theft audio transcriptions, a full map of years of quiet manipulation. He pulled up a chair. They thought you were helpless, he said softly. They didn't expect I'd been tracking their mess. He dialed a number, put the phone on speaker. Harper, he said. We're ready. The lawyer's voice came through, calm, sharp, surgical. Let's begin. Outside, snow kept falling, quiet and relentless. Inside, something inside me clicked into place, clean, irreversible. They'd wanted obedience. They'd wanted access. They'd wanted silence. But silence was no longer surrender. It was strategy. And I was done being the daughter they could reshape into their villain. The day I was discharged, the sky was a dull, unbroken gray, the kind that makes the whole city feel like it's holding its breath. Grandpa Ray drove me home in his old sedan, heater, rattling windshield wipers dragging across thin frost. I sat quietly, hospital bracelet still around my wrist, feeling the strange calm of someone who had finally stopped running. Back at my apartment, Ray set a thick envelope on the table. Harper finalized everything, he said. Cease and desist. Identity theft documentation. Fraud claims. And... He tapped the corner of the envelope. Leverage. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I could feel its weight, years of manipulation condensed into something sharp enough to cut cleanly. My phone buzzed nonstop, Ethan sending demands wrapped as concern. Lydia's voice notes dripping with guilt. Maddox insisting it was all a misunderstanding. Sienna posting cryptic stories about betrayal. I didn't answer. Not one message. Silence was finally mine. That night, Ray handed me a mug of coffee, steam rising in slow curls. They're spiraling, he said. They know the story slipped out of their hands. I stood by the window watching snow drift onto the streetlights. Good, I said quietly. The word felt like a door closing. 2 days later, we drove to Spokane, the roads hidden under a thin layer of white. Harper met us at Ray's house, coat dusted with frost, expression sharp as a scalpel. She spread the documents across the table, everything tied together in a narrative my family could no longer twist. These don't just protect you, she said. They expose them. I nodded. No fear, no regret, only clarity. They wanted control, I murmured. Instead, they gave me evidence. Ray's smile was small, proud, unshaken. They gave you freedom. Later that night, long after Harper left, something slid under the front door. An envelope. No name. No address. Inside was a single printout, Sienna's picnic post, family Sunday. No drama today, circled in red ink. Below it, in block letters, you don't know everything. My breath fogged the cold air. They thought this was over. They thought distance meant defeat. They thought I'd stay quiet. But all they'd done was hand me the first weapon. If you've ever been the quiet one, the dependable one, the person everyone leans on until you're too tired to stand, then you already understand pieces of my story. And if you've ever been called selfish for finally choosing yourself, hear me. Clearly, you're not the villain. What happened with my family didn't end in that hospital room, or with the documents Ray and Harper gathered. There's more truth coming, and some of it is going to cut deeper than they ever expected. So if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own home, hit subscribe. My story isn't over.